In this video, I'm going to demonstrate the workflow for an editorial design. In this assignment, you've been given copy from an online article that then you're going to turn into a two-page editorial design. So the first thing we're going to do is actually look at the copy from the article. And you'll see that it comes from an online publication called smashingmagazine.com. And it's an article about Swiss style graphic design. So when you're looking at the copy for the first time, it's really important that you actually read what you're going to typeset. Now, if you were typesetting a book, maybe you're not required to read, a 300-page book, but you'll become very familiar with that book after you've typeset it. So there is kind of an expectation that the designer who is typesetting will develop a familiarity with content so that they have kind of a heightened awareness about how they're working with it. So in that sense, it's really important. This is just a very short article, and it's also good background information if you're not quite certain what Swiss style graphic design is, because it actually lays out several important parts of it. So, there's extra reason for us to read and become familiar with the content. So I expect you'll do that. And then the next thing, the couple of other things you can do, I want to do a word count so I know how many words I'm working with. That's always a good indication of thinking how you're going to manage a layout, and how many columns you might need, or what kind of grid you may consider using. But first of all, I'm going to get rid of the things that I don't need in this document. So I don't need the headline. I need the actual headline, but not all of these other kind of parts. And mostly I put those in just to help you become familiar with parts of the page layout. So I'm going to get rid of the credit, the intro kicker, the body copy, and I think that's about it. I'll get rid of this top part later on. And I'm also then going to kind of look through, and if I'm using, some kind of a word processor like Word, it really helps because I can kind of just go through and see like which words are kind of potentially, there might be a spelling error. And sometimes people think that this is the name is actually spelled wrong, but if you went to this link, you would find that it's not incorrect. That's actually the writer's name. And then when I go through here, I can already see a spelling mistake. So I'm going to fix that. And this actually is a direct copy from the website. So, sometimes websites have more spelling mistakes than printed documents do. I mean, rarely do you see a spelling mistake in a newspaper, in a magazine, occasionally in a book, but maybe if it's 500 pages and you find one type error, it's okay. But on the web, it's really common. There's just not a lot of, seems like, quality control to kind of really edit the text. So, we need to keep up those standards. So really look at your copy. And then, when you look at certain names, those probably don't mean anything. And then there are some words that maybe come from a different language. And then, the spell check is always wanting to, look at those. But they all seem good to me. So I'm just going to, there was just one spelling mistake. So that's pretty good. And, ultimately, you might not be responsible for it, but sometimes designers are. So you have to be careful. And it also is one of the outstanding qualities of a professional graphic designer is attention to detail, especially when it comes to typesetting. So this part of graphic design is kind of an exacting art. I'm going to go to the Smashing Magazine link because there's a lot of great information on that. And there you can see Diogo's name is actually spelt right. And, there's some really good information on this article. And it's an edited version, what you're going to be typesetting. So I would really, encourage you to go and read the article because it has some really great information, how the Swiss style relates to the web. And we think of the web as, there are all these buzzwords around the web, creating user-friendly interfaces, but we've been creating user-friendly interfaces in previous mediums for centuries. So it's really nice that, the web has got all these new buzzwords, but they're kind of based on a tradition from time before. But look at all some of the examples. There's some examples that might feel, like if I look at this example, I might think that, well, it doesn't look very, Swiss style to me. Well, it actually is, because it uses typography, it uses a lot of white space, and it's beautifully set in terms of the size and proportion and placement. And those are some of the things at the heart of Swiss style graphic design. It also talks about grid systems, which I kind of want you to design your layout with a grid system, and it helps to do little thumbnail layouts and figure out, do you want to use a 3-column layout or a 4-column layout? What kind of grid would help, you set the content? And depending on what style you're looking for, depending on how you're thinking of placing the information, you might have a grid that helps you do that. And that's the first thing to know about a grid, is it's a really good friend when you're a graphic designer. Grids are the backbone of a lot of layouts on the screen, in print, everywhere. So they're just kind of used as a standard way of helping the designer, place information. And it doesn't mean you have to use a grid in the strictest sense, but it does provide an underlying structure to your layout, and that's why they're so commonly used. So there's some really fun things there, lots of great examples, a really good article. So I would encourage you to read the extended version, and you'll find out some of the early creators of the Swiss school, and that's a good thing. So let's go back to the actual content. So now I'm just going to get rid of that. And that's got everything I think I need for my layout. At that point, I'm going to go up to my tools and do the word count. And it says I have 820 words, and that's kind of good to know. And that's about it. So I would, at this point, I would save this document. And then when I want to go and copy the content, then all I have to do is open it up and do my Command A, my Command C. And then when I go into Illustrator, I'm kind of ready to work with my content. But before I jump into starting a layout, I asked you guys to do a mood board or kind of an inspiration document, so that you can, you read your copy, you get familiar with what you're actually typesetting. And in this case, it's an article on the Swiss style graphic design. And then it's a really good idea to then go, I want you to actually do the layout in the Swiss style. So that's the first lesson in editorial design, is your layout should complement and reinforce the content. It's not just something separate and removed. You really kind of want to, use your content in a way that informs how you decide to lay it out. So it's also, as I said, a great opportunity to learn something about Swiss style graphic design. So you're first tasked with, creating a little mood board or an inspiration board that reflects kind of what you found out about Swiss style graphic design. And it works as kind of a jumping off, where you can get some inspirational kind of screenshots. You might remember this one from the article, and things that you discover about it. And the things that I discovered about it are essentially space, scale, and contrast. And those are the three things that I'm kind of taking away: space, scale, and contrast. And contrast is one of those really useful design elements. You can have contrasting typefaces, you can have contrasting sizes, you can have contrasting colors, There's just lots of different ways you can implement contrast into a layout. And then the typography itself is really important in Swiss style design. So this is an invitation to make typography the centerpiece of your layout. And that's why I'm not allowing you to use any photographs, because I really want you to embrace type and all of its beauty in this particular assignment. So my mood board was just exploring different typefaces. And, you know, my first typeface that I looked at was Geneva. And I thought it was just a really clean typeface. And also, it has really nice proportions. The Helvetica typeset, you know, you can't go wrong with Helvetica, but it's so common. And there's a reason it's common, because it works really well. And, you know, the Helvetica family comes with, you know, you can buy the full Helvetica family. There's like, you know, I don't know, 70 or more typefaces in that particular typeface. So it's very useful to have variations of your typeface, you know, like bold, semi-bold, light, extra light, medium, you know, on and on. So Helvetica is really useful in that regard. But it's also very common, and I use it a lot. So I was thinking, I want to find something else. And the third one I found was this Source Sans Pro, and I kind of fell in love with it. I think it's got the best of both Geneva and Helvetica. And you'll see the problem with Geneva that, you know, if I didn't want to have to go out and buy the typeface, or I'm not even so sure if the Adobe Cloud has, like, you know, other typefaces in that family. So, but when I looked at that, get my tools out here, it only comes with one weight. And so I was a little bit disappointed by that, you know, like it only has the regular font style, you know, whereas Helvetica has like 6. And then if I chose Helvetica New, it's got even more, you know. So this starts becoming attractive because I've got all these different weights, you know, condensed bold, ultra light, thin, light, regular, medium, you know, and all the italic versions as well. So it becomes like really, it's a lot easier to kind of, you know, play with one typeface that has all these variations. And that's another form of contrast, you know, ultra light to bold, you know, there's like 3 or 4 different contrasting typefaces in here in terms of weight. And then you've got all of the italicized ones too. So that becomes, you know, really friendly for a person setting type. But I did find the kind of the best of both worlds, and that was in the Source Sans Pro. And there I have kind of a nice range. I have like 5 different weights: extra light, light, regular, semi-bold, bold. Oh, and black. I've got 6 different weights and several italicized typefaces. So that kind of was my favorite. And then when I did find that, and I started playing with different weights and sizes and italicized, and there's, you know, extra light, and there's black. I thought, oh, that's fantastic. It's kind of got a same kind of feeling as Geneva, but it has the functionality of Helvetica. So that was my go-to typeface.